Thank you, Manas. Welcome, Sarv, to Zinnov's conference, and thank you for your continued support. I guess you've attended all 14 editions of the Zinnov conference, so it's really great to have you, and it's a pleasure to be hosting you for the panel today, sir.
Thank you so much, Praveen.
So, sir, throughout the last 3 days of this conference, right, we've seen global leaders come and talk about and make predictions about, how the future of work, workers, and workplace are really going to evolve. It has indeed become the top, conversation amongst leaders in every leadership meeting, and everyone is really busy predicting the points of arrival with respect to this transformation, right? So, I just want to get started with a very, very simple question, right? What is that you are most excited about when it comes to this worker and workplace transformations? The fact that you're leading this, you're enabling this for your customers. What do you think is the most exciting part from your perspective?
I think let me start with some data points and some studies as well. Hybrid and remote work will continue. 20-25% of workers from bigger economies could work from home 3 to 5 days in a week. And that's 4 to 5 times the level before the pandemic. Our own studies show that 40% plus employees will leave their current employers if not given flexible and hybrid work options. And if you look at the growth in e-commerce and delivery economy, which is 2 to 5 times faster now, than the pre-pandemic scene, and that scenario will continue. This forces job shifts from the likes of leisure and travel industries to distribution centers and last mile delivery. This is estimated to be 100 million. And also another highlight, a study that I want to quote here is to determine how extensively remote work might persist after the pandemic. They analyzed its potential in more than 2,000 tasks in some 800 occupations. The pandemic demonstrated that much more work could be done remotely than we thought previously, including sales calls, which is being done more now. I'm sure Zinnov is doing that, and we do ourselves. Legal arbitration, trials, doctor visits, classroom training, real estate tours, and even expert repairs of some of the world's most sophisticated machinery made with the help of virtual reality, let alone the kind of work that we do. As a result, what I'm really excited about is what we thought as more mature area of the technology, the collaboration, productivity, something that we have been dealing with for a long time. And all of that, including knowledge management, collaboration, automation, with AI as the underpinning, has now new S-curve possibilities and innovation. Just a quote from Satya and also another data from another data, just highlighting the possibilities. We have seen in the first 2 months of this pandemic, 2 years worth of digital transformation.
Yes.
And by 2030, tech industry contribution to the GDP, world GDP will be 10%. I think what is more important is what that 10% means to the remaining 90%. And that is going to, touch and the workforce or workplace, worker transformation as well. And here, just a few things that that I'm excited about on the work front. People doing having the opportunity to do more meaningful work as opposed to mundane work, and also the collaboration possibilities, hyper collaboration, knowledge sharing in the flow of work through technology assistance, and the worker side as well. The frontline workers, these are two untouched. The hundreds of millions of frontline workers will also be part of what was possible previously with only knowledge workers, right? And also the focus on emotional well-being, in addition to physical well-being, and the possibilities for workers to learn, in the flow of work, for them to be ready for the future. And also what that means to, all of that means to workplace, the future workplace, and the virtual and physical coming together, make it seamless and make hybrid work happen with technology innovation behind it. And that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, truly enjoyed your excitement, sir. It came out very, very clearly as you were speaking about it. And I'm truly fascinated about the 10% economic contribution of internet that you talked about, and what could it do for the remaining 90%, right? In that sense, the points of arrival for 2030 looks really, really amazing. And let's just take that for a moment. And as companies plan their worker and workplace, let's call it W3, initiatives, what are the key questions they should be asking themselves today to assess whether they are ready or not to participate in what's coming in the future? How should companies, what questions should they really ask themselves?
The first thing is the mindset, right? The mindset of the companies. When it comes to digital transformation, often the workforce part is really, misunderstood or not adequately given weightage to. The moment when they talk about digital transformation, they talk about adopting cloud, moving workload to cloud, infrastructure to the cloud. And then they think about, okay, now that we have the cloud capabilities, is our application really leveraging the cloud, the architecture, if you will, the cloud native kind of thing. The workforce thing is the last one that comes to their mind. I think companies have to really think of workforce, the workplace transformation as a three-legged stool of digital transformation. If not, they will reach a dead end. So that's something that, as a mindset, I would suggest enterprises have to start with. And also, it's a journey. It's not an overnight thing. It's not just tinkering work by deploying some tool. It's a journey. It has its own phases, if you will. And the third thing is, it's a huge cultural transformation. So fundamentally speaking, there are a few questions that they have to start with. Is it what's the top of their top issue that they have? Is employee productivity, hiring and retaining top talent? What's a competitive situation in their industry? Is that what they're going after to address? What's a collaboration and productivity platform scenario? Do they have the best in the world? Possible in the world for them to move to the next step. And then think about automation. The collaboration, automation are no different thing to me. But it all has to come together. I think the collaboration realm is really merging with the automation realm. So therefore, what's their mindset? What's their automation strategy, if you will? And as we bring the two together, you will make hybrid and future work happen very seamlessly. And what about as the automation happens? What kind of thinking you have around employee, upskilling, reskilling, because jobs are changing as a result of all things that we're talking about. And then they're finally speaking, is employee experience an important thing as part of this agenda? So I think I'll kind of put together all of that as, a set of questions to answer, ponder about, and then define a problem statement before getting started.
Perfect. That's a great checklist in terms of really assessing the readiness of the enterprise. And Sarv, you and us have done a lot of work together, and we've tried dissecting what's happening in the future of work scenario. It has invariably come to our attention that business and IT leaders are really struggling to figure out what portions of work can go remote. I'm not talking about hybrid, just the fact that there's this fear of missing out, and people want to figure out if there's a way to go everything remote versus come to office. Is there any structured way of thinking about what roles can be done offline versus what have to be done in the pre-pandemic kind of settings?
The models are evolving, Praveen. It's a great question. Models are evolving. Advisory companies have their own flavors of different models, if you will. I think I'll just touch upon a few top-level things. And we know that the pandemic-induced digital transformation will continue even after the pandemic. For the first time in the history that we need to notice is the physical dimension of work has become a new factor. What this means is, does a role or job need to be in a particular place to get the job done? I think we took that one little for granted, given the lineage that we have, technology industry. We have seen that, dealt with that for a long time. I'm talking about broadly speaking, right? Does a job need to be across industry in a particular place? Retail, hospitality, leisure, travel, for example, need closer proximity. Production, warehousing do too. But the job we do and many others, and desk-based work in many industries need not be. So I think the first thing to start with is assessing the physical proximity requirement and perhaps attaching a score to it based on what's the human interaction needs, and thus the job has to be. Should there be a physical closeness between people or between and frequency of interaction, if you will. And does it really have exposure to strangers? And I think on the work environment front as well, does it have to be indoor work? I mean, can it be in an independent site, for example? So if you go with that kind of a criteria, if you will, or scoring mechanism, hospital clinics would tend to have high scores. And within that, you may have certain jobs like a physician need not be anymore, in a particular place, if you will. Computer-based office work, training kind of work would have less scores, if you will, and we have seen that now through the pandemic. What was before only 6%, hybrid or remote work. Now, even in this, you're kind of pushing it really 90% plus, if you will, through the pandemic. We may settle somewhere in between. But retail stores probably, somewhere in between. Construction site, farm-related work, somewhere in between, because there's no real, physical proximity to another person, those site proximities there. Given the scores, what are the automation and AI possibility to improve remote effectiveness, right? Or a frontline worker to reduce the risk of physical proximity? I think one is the physical proximity. Next is what kind of automation possibilities exist for us to make it more effective, reduce the risk, if you will. And even with all that, the fundamental question that you would have to answer is, while many of the jobs are possible to do remote, what are the implications for innovation and creativity? Yes. I think those are some of the criteria I would say one has to apply to decide what part of job, which job we kind of move hybrid or remote.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. In fact, one of the audience questions that we're just getting in is, you talk a lot about technology and the possibilities around it. I think the real question is there a tech solution that can truly replace, to your last comment, sir, can it truly replace the productive water cooler type of conversation, right? To your point on innovation, etc. You've been running a remote team forever, right? What difference do you see between today versus the pre-pandemic time? And how is technology really enabling workflows such as that of yours to still stay relevant, productive, innovative, and so on?
I think we're trying. Let me tell you, I'll be honest with you. It's not that we have figured out. There's there are a set of practices or technology interventions that the world has figured out to make that to help us be effective when it comes to innovation and creativity. I think yes, it's evolving still. Whiteboarding, for example, virtual collaboration on that. The water cooler kind of thing is, still it's a cultural thing, right? I think with everything being structured through the remote hybrid work, it's a real challenge. Let me be honest with you. While a lot of technology innovation possible, we can mimic certain things. There is absolutely nothing equal to being in the same place and just impromptu, just walking across the aisle and tapping the shoulder. Hey, I have this idea. What do you think of that? And then picking up a conversation with a colleague that you don't see often, just sharing an idea by the water cooler. I think absolutely that's not going to happen.
Right. So assuming that's going to be hybrid for a while, what are the best practices for driving effective change management, right? Because you are at least transitioning some bit of how you used to work versus how the future of work will look like. What's the right way of building an enterprise-wide culture of agility around future of work, sir?
I think this is often an underestimated thing, right? And in the McKinsey study, it shows that 70% of transformation failures are due to culture-related issues.
Yes.
Another World Economic Forum survey shows that culture is really at the top of the 6 challenges, not top 6 challenges, top of the 6 challenges. Culture, operating model, data analytics, systems, and tech, talent, and the last one I think is partnerships or something like that, with regards to digital transformation. But the good news is that the companies that focused on culture were 5x more likely to achieve breakthrough performance than the companies that neglected culture. I mean, 90% of the companies that really focused on culture and change management achieved breakthrough performance. That's what the studies have shown. I think I work with customers on a lot of those topics, and in fact, I have as part of my team 100 around the world, 100 change management consultants. Wow. Just really focusing on this topic. And I think, basically, from early stage on, it's not an afterthought. From early stage on, culture change has to be part of your plan. And, at the program project level, change, even if it is discovery, early pilots, for example, you will have some minimal number of targeted employees, right? What's happening on the adoption of new technology with that, control crowd. Right. And therefore, in parallel with that learning, what's the digital culture and analytics, if you will, what's the executive level sponsorship that you can secure, that the organization level change. From the pilot on to as you launch and, and move on to the next phases, and what's a mindset, role, skill changes required within the organization. And as you build the digital capability, and as you think about enhancing productivity or experience, if you will, and then taking it out to organization level, the leadership empowerment, right? The organization culture change program, is it really part of that as opposed to keeping it in isolation? And then as you transform, continuing that, the thing, it's not just a overnight thing. It has to be part of the process throughout. And I think, and signals are available as part of the platform, particularly, the work that I do, we have lots of platform signals available for us to really understand what's happening and then use that to, continuously fine tune your interventions on the culture or change side. And I think it has to be really core part of your project, if you will.
Right. Just dragging this point a little bit further, sir, I think there's this one book I'd read earlier, which was about 9 lies about work. And one of the biggest lies there was the author at least called out the fact that there's nothing called a company culture, right? The culture is really broken down to projects and teams. As you deal with large customers, do you see a cohesive company culture getting built, or do you still see it very fragmented and the culture kind of varies differently based on the teams that you're talking about, etc.?
Absolutely. I think, the department level, the team level, the leadership there. And I think that's where you start with, right? You create within the organization the beachheads, right? Yeah. What change means to success, what change means to some of the business metrics, and use that to, really, showcase and highlight. And you could also get that. You could also gain that, right? I think we have really quantified, even in public sector customers, we have quantified the outcome of change as they went through the change process, what that meant to the productivity, what that meant to savings, if you will, what that meant to employee satisfaction. We kind of used all that data to highlight what this change could mean to the rest of the organization as well. I think there's nothing wrong in creating those local nothing equal to creating those local successes and then using that to, kind of create those, the momentum within the company. Yes, there's nothing that can come down, you can push down, top down. I think there has to be a lot of, top, bottom up kind of success stories that we need to create.
Very interesting. I know we're running out of time, but very quickly, if you can provide your comments on the importance of employee experience as companies plan their new normal. How critical is that? You touched upon this briefly, but can you dissect that a little further for us?
I think, employee experience, let me tell you, I think with remote work, while employees are somewhat satisfied, but there is new data that is emerging now that and they're stressed out, right? And there are a lot of data in our own research and whatever researches that I have seen, between August, for example, August to the previous April, for example, there is social deficit, social burnout kind of issues that we are seeing that employees are reporting. And therefore, I think, some of the things that I would worry about as we think about remote work or hybrid work environment, is it really borderless? Is it, as they come back to work or hybrid work, is it equitable work? What is the transition between, remote and physical? Is it really seamless to make the hybrid work really happen? Are they feeling out of place as they come to office, right? And productivity is directly linked to employee experience and their well-being, right? And therefore, are we focusing on employee well-being? And there are lots of signals that we can take from the platforms that we use to kind of introduce nudges, if you will, if they are really overworking and continuously on meetings for hours together. That's not a good thing. And are we using some nudges for them to take a break, if you will? Kind of advising them to, and there are lots of other interesting things that we can introduce as part of a, in the flow of work interventions for them to, some, stress relieving, advices, if you will. And then also, are we, using the insights that we gain from the platform to continually enable cultural transformation? It's not just the employee happiness or their, experience enhancement is going to happen as a result of what the managers and leaders do, right? So therefore, how do we use the insights to help them? And with digital tools on the hands of the employees, and they're going to be highly creative with automation and AI kind of stuff, right? How are we enabling them? Just before I joined, just around the time I joined, you were talking about no code, low code type thing. Are we really enabling them for them to be creative and innovate on their work using low code, no code type thing? And then what are we doing to enable the collective knowledge of the enterprise? There's amazing technology now available for whether employees in the remote place or closer to in the flow of work. Are we providing them the right knowledge to enhance the experience, the work that they do? And the last bit that I would think about, to enhance the experience is that on a long-term basis, we know with automation, things are changing in every enterprise, right? The job personas are changing. The job one that's today in banking, for example, could be different tomorrow. A loan manager could be probably a risk analyst. And given how profiles are shifting in a particular industry and also the aspirations of the individuals, are we able to provide them learning paths? And based on the learning path in the flow of work, are we able to bring the content, the appropriate content for them, just learn on an ongoing basis and be prepared for the future? I think companies that do that will retain the employees and have much better employee experience, and that'll help them with the retention and perhaps be ready to take on the future as well as the industry changes.
Perfect. Just before we let you go, Sarv, two very quick rapid fire questions. Given a choice, would you go back to travel at pre-pandemic level, no travel at all, or some travel? What would you choose?
Definitely travel. Really, the role that I do that requires me to have customer proximity. Yes, within teams, we can work together. I think there is nothing equal to being in front of a customer, having a coffee with the customer, to build that relationship. And the customers understand that, and they are very happy to have remote conversations. But I think having a better relationship with them, the kind of building that partnership requires us to be in front. So the moment it opens up, I will be all around the world with my customers.
Okay, perfect. And the last one is, would you want your customers to have a new role in Chief Future of Work Officer?
I think so. I think this is a huge topic. It's a huge transformational opportunity for customers, for them to prepare their employees for the future, and also, as a result, be relevant in their own business in the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. It's always a delight to talk to you, and thanks for sharing all the perspectives that you did. I'm truly excited about the points of arrivals of the decade, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of innovation and transformation that will happen in the work and workplace areas. It's a pleasure to be working with you on this, and thank you once again for joining on this session.
Thank you, Praveen and Zinnov, for having me.
Thank you.
It's always great to be at Confluence.
Thank you.